History tells us the story of how our nation or community came to be everything that it is. It tells us about our ancestors, who they were. Most importantly of all, it gives us the ability to appreciate the legacies we may have inherited from them. The rich heritage of India, one of the world's oldest civilizations, is an all-embracing confluence of traditions and customs. History is a mirror that displays the face of a nation. The highlights of Indian heritage lie in the treasure of its art, architecture, classical dance, music, flora and fauna, and the innate secular philosophy of its people. Indian culture is an invaluable possession of our society. Indian culture is the oldest of all the cultures of the world. In spite of facing many ups and downs, Indian culture shines with all its glory and splendor. Culture is the soul of a nation. Cultural development is a historical process. Our ancestors learned many things from their predecessors. Culture which is transmitted and carried forward from one generation to the next generation. The culture we inherit from our predecessors is called our cultural heritage. Through epics and legends, we know our history. The history is proved by our archaeologists. One such legendary archaeologist, Professor B.B. Lal. "75 years ago, when India got her independence, two major lacunae stared in the face of Indian archaeologists. One was generated as a result of the partition of the country, and the other was due to scanty attention having been paid by Indian archaeologists, as the partition took away all the sites of the well-known Harappan civilization to Pakistan, leaving hardly any within the Indian border. Indian archaeologists, however, took up the challenge, and one is pleased to state that today we have more sites of this civilization than has Pakistan. Further, it is not merely the number that matters. The Indian sites such as Kalibangan, Banavali, Rakhigadi, Kunal, Birhana, Farmana, Lodal, Surkotada and Dholavira have added many new dimensions to our knowledge of this mighty civilization.
பொக்கிஷோன்றீங்களே, அது என்ன பொக்கிஷம்னா கொஞ்சம் சொல்லுங்களேன்.
சொல்றேன். மனிதனின் நேசம், மனங்களின் பாசம், இயற்கையின் வாசம், இன்னுயிர் சுவாசம், இவைகளை பேசும் இருபெரும் காசம், இதிகாசம், ராமபாரத இதிகாசம்.
ஓஹோ, மனுஷன் தன் வாழ்க்கைய எப்படியெல்லாம் வாழணும், எப்படியெல்லாம் வாழக்கூடாதுன்றத சொல்றதுதான் இந்த ராமபாரத இதிகாசம். இது இப்படியாக நடந்தது, இது இப்படியாக நடந்தது அப்படின்னு சொல்றோம் இல்லையா?
ஆமா,
அந்த இது இப்படியாக நடந்ததுதான் இதிகாசம்.
ஓஹோ.
Itihasa is a history. Itihasa means thus it happened. And anybody who thinks it is a mere story doesn't want to know the truth.
Another important thing to know about Itihas is it is eyewitness account. So the Westerners, when they came here, first of all, for them to understand the history could be so deep and ancient, they could not fathom, because they had fixed a date of 4000 BC, the beginning of the earth.
We live in a country with at least 5000 years of recorded history and culture and heritage. Every person who is born in this country should understand that this is really a great privilege.
General terms, we know history means record of events, of people in a particular time frame, in a particular geographical space. Okay. Now, they would write about so-and-so king born so-and-so, died so-and-so, in between he did this, these were his administrative reforms. Our method was very different. We would talk about a whole generation, we would talk about a whole epoch, a whole yuga.
I am surviving in the era in which veterans like Dr. B.B. Lal is there, because it's not quite often that you see legends like him working.
Brajbasi Lal was born on 2nd of May 1921 to Sri Ramcharan and Srimati Sarayu Devi. After obtaining his master's degree in Sanskrit from Allahabad University, Lal developed interest in archaeology and in 1943 became a trainee in excavation under veteran British archaeologist Mortimer Wheeler.
He told the secretary that I want to recruit a student who to my mind is very brilliant and would be very useful to the survey. But the age limit is 25 and he is only 23. So would you kindly consider relaxing the age limit? The secretary of the department said, impossible. He said, these are the rules, how can we change them? Then Wheeler played his trump card. He told him that he was specially invited by the Viceroy, Lord Doyen, to be the Director General to set the department right. And if I do not have a free hand to recruit the persons I like, I will give up and tell Lord Doyen that this is the difficulty, these are the hindrances, and I cannot work as Director General. This threat worked, and ultimately the Secretary agreed to lower the age limit to 23. It was for the first time in the history of the UPSC that the age limit was relaxed for an individual. So that is how I was selected.
I was one of the very few fortunate candidates selected by B.B. Lal in 1960-70. He was the Director General of Archaeological Survey of India.
लाल साहब से मैं 1982 में मिला तो मुझे बहुत खुशी हुई. मतलब बहुत बड़े जेंटलमैन थे और मुझे अच्छी तरह से उन्होंने रिसीव किया और एक तरीके से उन्होंने खुदाई भी मुझे अलॉट कर दी.
Professor Lal was a true karma yogi who has inspired several young minds to take up archaeology as a profession.
प्रोफेसर ब्रजवासी लाल भारत के महान पुरातत्वविद तो थे ही और उन्होंने बहुत महत्वपूर्ण काम किया, इसलिए भारत सरकार द्वारा पद्म विभूषण से उनको सम्मानित किया. मैं अपनी ओर से उनको हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं प्रेषित कर रहा हूँ.
He took over the reins as DG, Director General, the post-independent India, and contributed immensely, trained and taught the successive generations of scholars.
Professor Brijbasi Lalji, the centenarian living legend of Indian archaeology.
In the year 1959, Professor Lal became the first director of the School of Archaeology, where students came from all over Asia, such as Thailand, Nepal, and Afghanistan, to be trained under him.
Professor B.B. Lal was the director of the School of Archaeology. So I joined the School of Archaeology in the first batch on the 15th of October 1959. We were in all 9 students. Joining the School of Archaeology was a very unique experience for me to be exposed to such a wide range of subjects. Professor Lal also used to take our classes on different proto-historic cultures.
बेसिकली लाल साहब एक टीचर की तरह पढ़ाते थे हर चीज़ को, और बच्चों को या जो भी सुपरवाइज़र है या जो भी उनके अधीन काम कर रहा है तो उसको पूरा प्यार देते थे, और उनको डिसिप्लिन भी पसंद था.
If you see the writing, there is several books and reports in the name of Professor Lal. That is the reference book for us.
We excavate, we publish reports, but these remain confined to the scholarly world. The reports are shut up in the libraries, and occasionally scholars see them, research scholars in particular.
I met Professor B.B. Lal Sahab in 1976 and 77. At that time I was in the School of Archaeology. Before that we heard about him but did not know much about him, because I was a student of history. So in history we had one paper of archaeology. So in that paper we have always been hearing about him, and especially about his contribution in the excavation at Hastinapura.
Between 1951 and 52, Professor Lal conducted excavations of the key site of Hastinapura.
The excavations at Hastinapur, where he mentions in his book that he found painted gravure on a particular side, but on the river side he could not find the painted gravure.
The substantial part of the painted graveware settlement at the site was destroyed by a huge flood in the adjoining Ganga.
So he was wondering, why is it so? And he kept asking why till, 1 o'clock at night he gets up with an answer. He said, let me go and check. Is that possible? So when 1 o'clock at night he goes along with Chaukidar carrying lanterns and comes to a conclusion that the river must have cut the soil. And the next day he orders an underwater excavation. He goes deep down 15 meters to find that the painted gravure was there. And then linking up with the literature saying that at the time of Nichakshu there will be a flood and the capital will shift to Kaushambi. And he cross-checks in Kaushambi and finds that deep down there are painted gravures, all a bit degenerated what he found in Hastinapur.
Field work is always full of challenges of all kinds. So you cannot list them and say this is this, this is this. What it requires actually is devotion to your work. You forget everything and jump into it and do it. Unless that is the spirit, you won't succeed.
Professor Lal found the evidence for this in the Puranas. When the city of Nagasahvya, that is Hastinapura, is carried away by the Ganga, Nichakshu, the ruler, is said to have shifted to Kaushambi.
Our history was written in such a way that they built in the rituals, they built in the traditions, they built in the whole environment, the whole universe.
And archaeological finds should be linked That is, otherwise literature will go alone and findings will go alone. So if you can link it both, then it becomes very authentic. So of course he worked like that only. It is a Mahabharata project.
The methodology of writing history of our ancient rishis was different. The book Mahabharata is not all about war. War is just a small, not even 20% component out of 1 lakh verses. Not even 20,000 belong to the war. It's a huge tale of every aspect of life.
In the year 1954-55, he dug a trial trench and found Indraprastha fortification in the Purana Kila. The remains from the period of Maurya, Sunga, Kushana, Gupta, Rajput were excavated. From the lowest level of painted greyware culture, it confirmed that the Purana Kila is indeed Indraprastha of Mahabharata times.
Dr. Lal has done great work in proving that this is when the Mahabharata was done.
There are two extremely divergent views about the historicity of the Mahabharata. As an archaeologist, Professor Lal thought that the best way to ascertain the truth might be to explore and excavate sites associated with the Mahabharata epic. Hence, he explored all the sites associated with it, such as Hastinapura, the capital of the Kauravas, Mathura, the birthplace of Lord Krishna, Kurukshetra, where the war was fought, and found that they all contained the painted greyware in their lowest levels, datable to circa 1200 to 800. Kayena manasa buddhya kevalaihi indriyaihi api yoginah karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva atma shuddhaye.
Ayodhya was the capital of ancient Siam, and even today all the kings are called Rama, Rama the first, Rama the second. Even if you're born Lakshmana, when you become king, you have to change your name to Rama. That is how closely they are associated with the Ramayana. They have integrated their religions much better. For example, in a Muslim nikah, they have to have the Ramayana, whole dance drama of Ramayana. But you must narrate the story of Ramayana. Don't forget that was the ancient kingdom of Sri Vijaya. For them, they go completely by literature.
The next project, namely Archaeology of the Ramayana sites, though conceived while in the survey, could not undertake it, since, as the Director General, almost all his time was taken up by administrative and other allied matters. It was only after voluntary retirement from the survey in 1972, Professor B.B. Lalji could plan to take up this project, to begin with at the Jivaji University, Gwalior, and later with full attention at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies at Simla.
He resigned from his own, he took voluntary retirement at the age of 55, which nobody would have done at that time, because he wanted to go back to this college and the university and teach again. So that is what he had done, and by that time, when we met him, he was in the Institute of Advanced Studies. Therefrom, he had come as the director of the excavation, and then we had a very great opportunity to work under him.
The survey helped him in the field work, which ran from 1977 to 1986, which was mostly headed by Sri K.N. Dikshit. Under this project, 5 sites were taken up for investigation. Ayodhya, the capital of the Koshala kingdom, from where Rama hailed. Sringaverpura, where Rama, Sita and Lakshmana crossed the Ganga in the first lap of their exile. Bharatwaja Ashrama, where the trio stayed overnight to pay their homage to sage Bharatwaja. Chitrakuta, where they stayed for quite some time before proceeding southwards, and Nandigrama, from where Bharata carried on the governmental affairs in the absence of Rama.
Excavation means you have to work like a laborer. So we did that kind of work there, and the result was wonderful. And on the basis of which, the Supreme Court of India, they could solve the problem which has been troubling the mind of India since the last 500 years. So that was conclusion which was drawn by Professor B.B. that in a way facilitated in concluding this one and in helping the Supreme Court of India also to reach a conclusion.
His contribution to the victory of Dharma and laying the foundations for the rightful construction of the Rama temple through peaceful means will always be remembered.
राम उनकी ऐतिहासिकता, मंदिर और सेतु, साहित्य, पुरातत्व और अन्य विज्ञान के साक्ष्य आपकी महत्वपूर्ण कृतियों में शुमार है.
Important thing is that he worked in the era where things were not favoring his thoughts. He always had thoughts which were related to Bharatiya Sanskriti, Bharatiya Parampara. But the time in which he was surviving, the wind was blowing against him. There were many who were trying to oppose him, his ideas, his thoughts. He still stood firm on his ideas, on his ideals, on his findings. And that is why we are seeing the revolution in the concept of archaeology. In a way, he in fact revolutionized the whole concept of archaeological studies in India.
He taught us archaeology. When I say us, Sushma included, and my mother. My mother accompanied him everywhere. She learned archaeology for him. I always called her the non-paid technical assistant. And she could do anything. She could, make photographs and write down, monitor, and make out a list of all the artifacts found. She was a very great help.
I went to Sringaverpur with my in-laws. They are both so simple, and they were ready to eat any simple food and live in a very simple way. And morning he would go for work, and no matter how hot it was, he would be there. And afternoon he'll come for lunch and rest a little, again go back for work. So this was his routine. When he had done the excavations, he went right inside the deep excavations that were there done, and he started explaining everything.
तो उसके लिए वो क्या करते थे कि आने के बाद उन्होंने बड़ी पिकैक्स जो मजदूर चलाता है वो खुद ले ली और खुद उसको बड़ी पिकैक्स से काम कर रहे हैं और खुद कर रहे हैं. तो शर्म से वो लड़का जो सुपरवाइज़र है वो उनसे वो पिकैक्स लेता था, फिर वो उनके सामने खोदता था. जब वो खोदता रहता था थोड़ी देर, उन्होंने देखा अब ये थक गया है तो उसको बोल के कि ये पूरा एरिया तुम करके रखो, मैं अभी लौटता हूँ.
In the district of Hanumangarh, state of Rajasthan, Kalibangan has brought to light settlements of mature Harappan times, ascribable to 3000 to 2600 BCE. The agricultural settlement is the earliest ever discovered in an excavation anywhere in the world. In the Rig Veda, there are a number of hymns in praise of Saraswati, such as the famous Nadi Sukta. In the basin of Haryana, Rajasthan, a large number of sites ascribed to various stages of Harappa. Also, Indus, Saraswati Valley civilization, have been discovered.
Amin is a site in Haryana which is associated with Bhammanyu. I thought if it is so, it must yield painted graveyard. It's a very high mound. We went round the mound, found nothing. There is plenty of water accumulated on the ground, rainwater, but no water to drink. We had whatever little we had taken, we finished it. So we sent Girjaram to nearby place to get some water. Then we went up the mound. I said, let us see what is happening there. And at the top of the mound, there was a well which had stopped giving water. It had dried up. So people were rejuvenating it, taking the silt out so that water may come again. And to our great surprise, we found painted graveyard in that silt. So that is the kind of sacrifice, as you may call it, one has to make for achieving one's end. It's a complete dedication that is necessary.
We have found so many more cities on the banks of the river Saraswati thanks to great pioneering archaeologists like Dr. B.B. Lal.
He was curious to know why Kalibanga died, civilization died. And to get an answer, he again got Ghaggar to be bored by a special team consisting of and led by an Italian. And they came to a conclusion that the river dried up around 2000 BCE. And then he realizes that in Rigved, the Saraswati river has been mentioned 75 times in a particular mandal. Therefore, if the river was a mighty flowing river, it had to be written before 2000 BCE. And he suggested that it is written in 3rd millennium BCE. You remember what Max Muller said? No one on earth will ever find out when Rigved was written.
Not just generations. We all ought to thank Professor Brajbasi Lal for his excavations, his reports, and his well-reasoned conclusions.
He has created a base for interpretation of Indian archaeology. Whatever we are doing, just upper level of that base.
His disciples in India today are eminent persons, Director General of, say, National Museum or Archaeological Galleries or Director General Archaeology. They all are highly placed. They are well established. Let us pray that India produce scholars like him in great quantity so that we change the narrative not only related to India but also related to the entire world with respect to India.
आपके द्वारा भारतीय संस्कृति के पुनरुत्थान में किए गए योगदान से भावी पीढ़ियां सदैव प्रेरणा लेती रहेगी। आपका संपूर्ण जीवन राष्ट्र सेवा को समर्पित रहा, जो सभी के लिए अनुकरणीय है।
Professor Lal was bestowed with the 3rd highest civilian award, Padmavibhushan, in the year 2000 and the 2nd highest civilian award, Padmavibhushan, in 2021 by the Honorable President of India for his seminal contribution to Indian archaeology.
Professor Brajbasi Lal, Puratavigyan.
Let us keep our doors and windows open so that fresh air may come from outside. At the same time, we should remain firmly seated in our own tradition.